Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining and welcome back to Wall Street Silver. Our guest today is the legend himself, my good friend, Gregory Mannarino. I'm super grateful that you've joined us. So thank you, Greg.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a huge pleasure. I wanted to get you on to talk to you about everything that's going on in the economy. It is absolutely crazy. You see that's happening in the Middle East in the past month or so. Where do you see the global economy heading? Are we heading for more bank collapses, which is a lot of people talking about on social media? Where do you see everything going, Greg?
Well, I guess let's start off with the banks. I mean, I've been telling people for over a year now, over a year. And I really believe this is, I started getting this out before anybody else. These banks are in a lot of trouble. A lot of trouble. They're loaded up on bad debt. And there's actually bank runs going on today. People aren't allowed to know this, but
Mm.
outflows from these institutions, deposits are being pulled at their fastest pace we've ever seen. I've been telling people to get their cash out of these institutions. The worst part of this is, and you're probably aware of this, is the FDIC has already said there are hundreds and hundreds of banks that are failing. We're
Right.
not allowed to know which banks they are because it's privileged information. That means that some people know, and I hate that. Imagine we are keeping our cash in these institutions. We're not allowed to know which ones are failing, but some people are. That's
Yeah.
just, it's disgusting. To me, it's a consolidation of the system, which we've been witnessing happen for quite a long time, the consolidating power. Yeah, absolutely. And with regard to the global economy, it's becoming now 100% war dependent, especially here in the United States here. I mean, this insane prospect here. They were trying to fist feed people this GDP number. Oh, look at US GDP. It's higher. The only mainstream media outlet that was telling the truth was Reuters. Reuters explained that this number is being propped up by cash that's being used to fund wars. I
Wow.
mean, it's not that our economy is doing any better here. People they're being choked to death by design. Central banks here are crushing. They're crushing everyone, also by design. It's period. The end. They're the enemy. I just did a video this morning. Know your enemy because they know you.
Yeah.
I urge people to go check it out on my YouTube channel. It's all about what central banks are pulling off. They want war. Their goal is to inflate. No other endeavor on the planet gives a greater demand for borrowed dollars than war. It's not going to
Yeah.
stop. It's going to go on and on and on. And that's where we are. And the people are going to pay the prices they always do. And they're going to pay with their lives.
And yeah, it's pretty crazy out there, Greg. And you see, just this week, I read it about 2 days ago or a day ago on the 29th of October. And Jamie Dimon is even selling a massive amount of his family shares that he owns in JP Morgan bank. So what do you see happening there when you see the one of the largest CEOs of these banks starting to sell off his shares that he's never done before? This is the first time he's sold this many shares of that bank stock. Does he know something like what you just said earlier? We don't know something, and then some of these people know which banks are going under. Is it a possibility that Bank of America or even JP Morgan will start seeing some massive losses soon?
Well, let's back up a moment here. First of all, Bank of America, I believe, and I've been telling people this, I don't know for how long now, several months, is in my view one of the Wall Street institutions that more than likely will fail,
Wow.
followed probably by Wells Fargo. Both of these institutions have a lot of bad debt. And and loan defaults are skyrocketing across the board. Now, with regard to JP Morgan, this is it possible that JP Morgan could fail? It's possible. But I think it's an outlier.
Hmm.
I think JP Morgan is going to be one of these institutions that is going to be a beneficiary of a lot of what's happening here. JP Morgan, specifically Jamie Dimon, is a big player with regard to the government here, and they look toward to JP Morgan. I mean, it was the government, quote unquote, that put together the deal last time the market fell between Bear Stearns and JP Morgan. Was able to buy assets for pennies on the dollar. That was
Right.
set up again by the so-called government as well. And they always go to the JP Morgan, Jamie Dimon specific, because he's willing to play ball with it. He understands, look, there is the government, quote unquote, and the banks, especially the mega banks like JP Morgan, they're in bed together. They're
Right.
working together clearly here. Why he's dumping shares? Obviously, this man has a lot more knowledge as to what's happening than we do. You and I could sit here and speculate, and that's what we're supposed to do, to try to guess what's going on. At least try to,
Right.
put together the most likely scenario here. What was the statement that he put out? Something to the effect that he's selling all of these shares. This is an astronomical sum, 147 million or something
Yeah, it's
along those lines.
crazy.
Yeah, just to diversify. Okay, look, look, this guy, all these super rich people, they know where this is going. There's not, and that's again why, you see, here's the thing with regard to people pulling their cash out of these institutions. Nobody knows until everybody knows. If you watch it's always the same story. The mainstream, they can't tell people what's happening. They never
Right.
can. Because then it would start a panic. There's not enough cash in these. They're waiting for people to put, like Jamie Dimon, to pull some of their cash out here. I'm not sure what he's doing with this cash. Maybe he's going to diversify into, silver or gold or some other Bitcoin. I mean, I don't know what he's looking to do with this cash.
Right.
But whatever he's doing with it, it's definitely should send a message to people here. Look, there's no way out of this, and people are not going to act until it's too late, as they always do. And I've been telling people for I don't know how long, and I'm going to tell people here again: get your cash out. There's no reason to have your cash. All right. Let me be more specific. People are going to say, "Okay, Greg, you're telling people to take their cash out.
Mhm.
What do we do with it?" And that's
Right.
really a great question. My grandparents, I can tell you what they did. They hid it in the house under the mattress, buried it in the yard. Actually, this is what they. I'm not lying. My grandparents buried cash in the yard.
That's awesome.
When I was a kid, I wonder if some of it's still laying back there. I don't know. In Brooklyn, Sheepshead Bay, but the truth is, if people need to keep their cash in a bank, or they really should be looking at credit unions. Why? Why would Greg say that credit unions
Yeah,
are
why?
safer? Okay, let's outline that real quick. First of all, credit unions operate not for profit. Credit unions do have zero derivative exposure, zero. So that's something to consider as well. So I am not saying, believe me, anyone listening to this right now, that these are 100% safe and they're guaranteed to not have issues moving forward. But if you're worried, for example, about derivative exposure, which I think a lot of people are, I mean, that's
Yeah.
the Achilles heel to a lot of this thing that we're seeing here right now. It's the whole system is fraudulent, and it's built upon this derivative exposure, which is in the quadrillions. No one actually knows how big it is, but it's at least in the quadrillions. So you want to be a little safer, take your cash out of, let's say, Bank of America, any of these other Wall Street banks here. And I think Bank of America is in a lot of trouble
Yeah.
looking at. So if you're in Bank of America, you got to get your cash out. I'm telling you right now. And then comes Morgan Stanley. With regard to JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs, these are the super banks or super banks. If one of these institutions were to go down, kind of like the whole Lehman Brothers thing, this, I mean, is it possible? Yeah, but I think it's an outlier, like I said. But
Right.
look at credit unions, people. Find a place to put your cash. Now, people ask me, while we're on the topic, let's talk about this too. What about brokerages, Greg? Well, in
Right.
theory, brokerages are insured up to $500,000. But look, there's risk there too. Anytime cash or anything leaves your hands and you go put it someplace, even if you're going to bury it in your yard, there's risk. There's
Yeah.
risk associated with that. You can't, this whole thing is loaded with trapdoors and minefields everywhere. But you got to think for yourself, okay, what is right for you? Maybe it is right for you to bury your cash in your yard like my grandmother did. I'm not making this up. This is true.
So I just wanted to let everyone know about our new sponsor, Strategic Wealth Preservation. They are an international precious metals dealer, and they are a secured storage provider that have headquarters in the Cayman Islands. The company owns and operates a large Class 3 UL rated vault in the Grand Caymans, and they offer other strategic locations as part of its global storage network. They specialize in the acquisition, secure storage, and liquidation of precious metals for individuals, companies, trusts, and wealth management professionals on behalf of their clients. So if you guys want to check them out, the link is in the description below.
A lot of people did that back then.
That's
You know how much
awesome.
cash must be buried in people's
Oh,
yards
probably
through the
tons.
depression and stuff like that. You know,
Yeah.
there's probably a lot of it. You know, gold, silver, and all kinds of stuff like that. You know, I know my grandparents also had gold and silver. I never heard about that. When my grandparents passed away, they didn't have much money that they left to us all. I think I got $2,000. When I was a kid, that was a ton of money to
That's
me
a ton
back
of money.
then. But I
Yeah.
didn't get any gold or silver, which I wish I would have gotten.
Yeah.
You know, it's crazy. But anyway, I mean, you know, people just need to think about where things are going and why they are going the way they are. At the root cause of the situation right now is liquidity. I mean, it's drying up. It's drying up very, very rapidly. In fact, I will say this. In fact, this is probably the first time I'm saying this. So this is a little
Mm.
exclusive on your show here.
Oh, nice.
Liquidity, in my opinion, from everything I look at, and I look at this stuff around the clock, as you know,
Right.
is drying up faster than I thought it would. And
Wow.
that's why we're seeing war expand, why you're hearing calls for more funding for this war, more funding for that war, and everything else. Again, it's part of the mechanism to pull more cash into the system so it can foster the illusion that it's stable. It's not gonna last
Wow.
here. They need another reason. They need to expand the war. Again, we're now 100% dependent on war. I mean, the expansion of war. You know, Gerald Celente says, and you know this guy, I love him very
Yeah.
much. One of my great friends, Gerald Celente. Or when all else fails, they bring it to war. But I think the goal here is war. Central banks, no other endeavor on the planet Earth creates a greater need again for borrowed dollars than
Right.
war. Who supplies all this cash? Again, we keep hearing from President Biden about funding for this, that, and the other thing, this war, that war. Now we heard from Trump over the weekend, same kind of thing. I mean, if you put Trump and Biden next to each other, same thing coming out of their mouths. You know, it's the blank check to support Israel, support Ukraine, support
Right. Yeah.
everything
Yeah.
else here. You know, it's just going to be a continuation of the same. And we already look, this is not going to end. This is going to go on and expand. And neither of these guys, no presidential hopeful, no current president, no Federal Reserve president, no politician is going to tell people right now that the system is dependent on more liquidity, more war. And it's going to do is exacerbate the underlying problem. It's not going to fix a damn thing. And they're going to blame everything on the war. Oh, the economy is failing because of the war.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
inflation is going up because of the war. Oh, this is because of the war. And, you know, and it's all being set up. This whole thing, nothing is in the now. This has all been planned out, every step of this from years and years ago. It's following an exact plan that central banks who runs the economy? It's central banks. Who
Thanks.
runs
Yeah.
the world markets? It's central banks. Who runs the entire financial system? It's central banks. So they control everything, and
Everything. Yeah.
they basically have us all on a trajectory leading towards an end. And they have every one of the politicians in their pockets, even presidential hopefuls, to foster their end game. No, again, central banks' goal here is war. It allows them to inflate. Central banks get stronger when they're called on to issue more debt, not weaker. Remember that whole lie that was
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
around? Yeah, Trump is bankrupting the Fed now. All he did was empower the Fed, and people didn't want to
Wow.
hear it. And they're going to get angry hearing this now, but that's a fact. When you can realize the system, realize how it works, you understand why things are how they are. And it's crazy. But again, going back
That's
to liquidity,
terrifying.
it is. But here's the thing: we know who our enemy is. We
Yeah.
know what they want, so it allows us to take action. Okay,
Yeah.
betting against the debt, becoming our own central bank, realizing that we are not each other's enemies here, which
Yeah.
they want us to believe. You got to hate these people because of this. You're going to hate these people. Again, it's a setup.
Wow.
It's always the same. It's a deception to keep people's eyes off the ball. And the ball should be directly on central banks and the politicians who they have in their pockets. All of them.
Absolutely. Well, Greg, it's such a huge pleasure having you come down to Wall Street Silver. It's you have no idea how grateful we are. I'm super, super grateful. So, and we'd love to have you back on soon. As the market develops, we'd really love to have you back on.
Let's do it.
Yeah, it's crazy what's going on out there. So we'll be watching the Fed and we'll be watching Powell closely.
Yeah.
All right, talk to you soon.